Hello everybody, welcome back, and today we're going to be doing a very exciting vlog. As you guys know, I've really been trying to get more into indie recently, indie fantasy, indie romance, lots of different indie, but one that I really wanted to read more of was indie fantasies. I've been reached out to by a couple of indie authors asking me if I wanted a review copy, and a lot of them sounded really good. So I figured why not just collect all of the review copies that have been provided to me and do a vlog on them. We've got 3 different ones that I'm going to be reviewing for this vlog. The first one is the new Rob J. Hayes. I don't have a physical copy of this. It is not out yet. I'm not 100% sure when it's coming out, but I think sometime in the month of July. This is a progressive fantasy sci-fi, so I'm not sure exactly how that works. I think there are spaceships, but also fantasy powers, and it's also one of those like level up type of stories. I'm really interested. I've never read a Rob J. Hayes, so this is actually the month I'm going to be reading 2 of them because my Patreon and I are going to be buddy reading Never Die for the Summer of Self-Pub readathon happening at the end of the month. So that's my first one, and then I have gotten a couple of other physical copies. The first one is The Last Keeper by J.V. Hilliard. This one and the audiobook were provided to me by the author, so thank you so very much. This one sounds really interesting because it involves a boy that has prophetic visions, and I also think there are keepers of different things, and their job is to keep the secrets of visions and forbidden secrets, things like that. There's also an elven princess who is going between the, I think, humans and the elves, but she has to keep that a secret, so she's kind of like an ambassador between the two. And then there's a terrifying force of evil that is threatening the realm as a whole. So it sounds really interesting. I'm very, very excited to get to this one. Like I said, I also have the Audible audiobook of this one as well, so I'm hoping to get to it pretty quickly. And then we have a political fantasy, and that is The Crimson Script by S.J. Hull. I don't know a ton about this one, but I do know that I think it's got a civil war, and there are also some gang factions that are rising up to take over the empire, and it's a city of masks. So that sounds really, really cool. Again, this one's not super long, and I'm very excited to get to it. I've actually had this one for a little while, and I told the author I wasn't sure when I was going to be able to get to it, but now is that time. And then last but not least, the very kind Yuji Gutman sent me Winds of Strife. He was kind enough when he saw my Indie Fantasy TBR to reach out and offer me a review copy. So thank you so much, Yuji Gutman. This one is actually a lot thicker than I thought it was going to be. It is 522 pages, but it sounds so good. I think it's gonna fly by. This one is about a realm where witch hunts have plagued for a while, and I think, as far as I'm aware, the witch hunts are after women, and this guy decides to infiltrate the witch hunters, but he's been there for like 15 years, and finally his opportunity to overthrow the king has come about, but because he's been there for 15 years, he has been a little bit corrupted himself. So sounds really good. The blue is just right up my alley. I love this cover. So I'm extremely, extremely excited to get to this one. Ooh, and it actually looks like it has some illustrations in there as well. These are really, really pretty. So those are the 4 books that I'm going to be reading for this indie vlog. I'll check back in with you guys once I have read a little bit more of these. Some of them I was planning to wait till the Summer of Self-Pub week, but honestly, I'm just excited and I want to get to them, so I may just make this a whole month of indie, read these in the beginning of the month, and then do something different for the Summer of Self-Pub. But all of the information for all of the things that I have talked about in this intro are linked down below. I think I have been rambling long enough, so let's just jump on into the vlog, shall we? So this is going to be a really quick update for the first book. I have decided to DNF The Last Keeper by J.V. Hilliard. This one just isn't going to be the book for me, and so I'm just going to go ahead and stop here. I got about 20-ish% of the way through before deciding to put it down. In full disclosure, I was listening to the audiobook as well. But for me, the writing style just really wasn't working. It's got more of a formal, almost lyrical type writing where the sentences are not as punchy. They're a lot more flourished, and sometimes that works for people, but it just really was not working for me. I found that there was a lot of the plot that was being done through dialogue. There was a lot of tell and not show in a lot of the different things that we were experiencing with the characters. Most of the world building was being done through dialogue, so we would have two characters talking to one another and they would be basically just telling you all of the things. And for me, that's just not a very engaging way to hear about a story. I would much rather see these events unfold or see them unfold in a different manner than just being told about them. So it kept me from connecting to the story and to the characters. For now, I'm just going to be putting this one down. I really appreciate the opportunity to give this book a try. So thank you so much to the author for sending me a copy of this and the audiobook, and hopefully it will be able to find a home for somebody that really, really loves it. I do not have any idea what I'm going to be reading next. I am thinking maybe Winds of Strife, because even though Yuji Gutwin was so kind as to send me a physical copy, I could actually get the audiobook too. So I may do like a tandem read audio and physically read at times. I do have a really, really long drive to work tomorrow. As usual, I've got to go cover at an outline clinic, so I need an audiobook desperately. So I'll probably see about getting that audiobook from Audible. So yeah, I think that is pretty much everything that I had to talk about now. Once I figure out what the heck I'm reading, I'll check back in with you guys. So I decided to pick up the audiobook for Winds of Strife, and I had been listening to this on my way to and from work today. I had a pretty long drive, so I ended up getting about 100 pages in. And guys, I'm really enjoying this so far. So this has a more hard magic system than what I was expecting. You have this magic called, let me look it up, Synspiric power, and essentially this power is based off of your emotions. So different emotions you can kind of bring forth at certain times, and these emotions will create certain powers. And yes, this is slightly voluntary, but you can also have powers when things are involuntary too. So for example, hatred conjures fire, things of that nature. So I really find the magic system very, very interesting. The weird thing is, this is based in a world where the king currently thinks that all women are witches and they are evil, and they can draw on Synspiric power, but so can men. But for some reason, he is convinced that only women are mishandling it and mismanaging it, misusing it. Many, many years ago, he killed a witch who he thought was causing the world to slowly darken earlier and earlier and earlier. So at some point they could end up in total darkness. But this has been going on for the last millennia. And so nobody really knows, is it a witch that started this whole process, or is it some kind of natural phenomenon? But that seems to be the overarching thing behind this book, is to stop the world from eventually plummeting into complete and total darkness. So you have the princess, who is his daughter, that he is just trying to control and manipulate to do whatever his bidding is. And then you also have the harbingers, the sun harbingers, and their responsibility is to go and seek out witches and murder them and their families so that their families won't come back and seek revenge. We have our main character, Nye, who is part of the sun harbingers, but he's not really in it because he believes in the mission. He's trying to overthrow the king from the inside, but he's had to do a lot of things to keep his cover that he's really, really not proud of. Yeah. So that is Winds of Strife so far. I'm really liking the writing style. It is doing that thing that sometimes indies do where something will happen and it'll then get like re-explained to you again in a different way. I find that this happens a lot with writers that don't have as close editing or maybe are newer. They tend to over-explain to the reader. It's not enough that it's driving me crazy, but it is enough that I have noticed it a couple of times, so that's not ideal. But the main character, Nye, had something happen to him when he was a kid, and because of that, he's got some deformities. But he also has this little voice thing inside his head, and that thing is cracking me up. If you've read Grey Sister, you'll know what I'm talking about, but think Grey Sister, because this reminds me a lot of that, and it was one of my favorite things about Grey Sister. I thought it was hilarious, and it's working really, really well in Winds of Strife as well. So I am enjoying that a lot. So far, so good. This is shaping up to be a 4-star read as of right now. I'm really enjoying it. So let's just hope that it continues on the same trajectory, because I'm about to get off of here now. I've got some Patreon sprints starting in about 30 minutes, so I need to go get ready for those. I've also got a new thing up my sleeve that I need to start working on because it's got to be done by the end of the month. And if I don't get it done, well, that would just be sad. I guess there's not any big repercussions to that, but it would be sad. So I'm gonna go work on that as well during these Patreon sprints, but so far, so good on Winds of Strife. I'm enjoying it a lot, and I'm hoping that it continues that way. All right, everybody, so we haven't done a car update in a while, so I figured, why not? We'll be filming this on my phone because I did not bring my camera with me today. But anyway, I'm about 60% of the way through the Windless Strife, and I'm still enjoying it a lot so far. I find that the magic system is really cool, but it almost can be a little heavy-handed at times, where it's in every single scene rather than being something that's just kind of there and we're enjoying throughout the story. But I'm still really enjoying it. I find it very interesting and very unique. There are definitely some points of view that I'm much more interested in than others. I like hearing from Nye's point of view. I obviously thought he was going to be the main character, so I'm very interested in his past and how his scars came to be, how this voice came to be, and who he is as a person. I don't find him as morally gray as I was anticipating, but I'm still very interested in his character and his storyline. I'm also interested in Diana and how everything's going to shake out from her point of view. She is kind of one of these conspirators that has the power to harness passion in a very intricate and precise way, and she is going to help overthrow the king. And then we also have this other point of view, Glitter, and her like band, and they seem to be kind of the rebel conspirators. They're after the Harbingers. We have a lot of points of view in this book. I don't like Glitter's point of view very much at all. I'm just not a fan of that ditzy, smart alecky type of character. It just not really something that I personally tend to like. I guess I can if it's done a certain way, but as a general rule, not my favorite. And I'm finding that we have a lot of points of view, and we're not focusing on things that you would expect to focus on so far, especially considering what the overall plot was shaping out to be. So I'm just waiting on him to find a little bit more focus. There are a lot of characters, there are a lot of different points of view, some that don't really seem to be contributing to the story, they're just kind of there. So I'm not loving that part. I'm waiting on him to really narrow down the focus a lot more and stop kind of bouncing around all over the place to try to give us all of these different points of views. So far, I feel like it has been a hair long. I think we could have cut out some of those POVs and some of those things and still had a very good, concise story. But there has just been something happen that seems like it's going to kind of narrow in on that plot a little bit, focus on a character that I anticipated us focusing a lot on from the beginning, just based off of the prologue. So I'm very interested to see more of her and learn how she's going to play into all of this. I am liking the writing style. I do find his writing style very easy to read, easy to understand. Things aren't overly complicated, but enough that I'm intrigued. And I don't feel like it's a forced writing style. I do still sometimes think that there are times where he will over-explain things a little bit, but that's a relatively common problem in books, so I'm not really going to hold that against the writing style. Overall, I'm still having a great time with this book. I'm really enjoying it. I am being a little bit nitpicky, but overall, I'm still having a good time. So I'm excited to finish this out, finish out the last 40%, and let you guys know what I finally think in the end. Okay, so I have finally finished Winds of Strife by Yuji Gutman. I really enjoyed this one. I think I'm going to end up giving it a 4-star, maybe a low 4-star, but definitely a 4-star. I had a great time with this. So let's talk about things that I really enjoyed. The magic system, super cool, very unique and different. I love the way that emotion played into how people were able to manipulate their environment, manipulate themselves. I particularly liked that it kind of had a self-limiting factor, and that you could not harness more than one emotion at a time. And you also couldn't harness one emotion to do multiple things. You had to pick one thing and focus your energy on it. And I thought that this was a super cool way of doing things. I had never seen, a lot of times magic has something that you can just do anything with it. But in this one, not the case. You kind of had to pick and choose what you wanted. Of course, there are people that are able to do things better and are a lot stronger in certain emotions than others. So you would have like an empath that would be able to control care more, or a pyromancer that could harness anger better. A lot of people could do multiple emotions, but you did have people that would focus on one particular thing. So really enjoyed that. Writing style was good. It was nice and fast paced for the most part. So I had a great time. A couple of nitpicky things that I had was, we've already talked about the writing style being a hair repetitive. A lot of times we would hear something in one point of view and then we would switch to another point of view and be told the same thing again. A little frustrating, but a little editing probably would have helped with that. So not too much knocked off for that one. I didn't love the fact that we had so many POVs in this. I felt like there were a lot of characters that were relatively insignificant that were still getting their own point of view, and I just didn't find it necessary. I didn't think it added anything, and we could have gotten it from another character's point of view and kind of spent more time getting to know the characters. And because of that, I do feel like the book could have been substantially shorter. So I think it is around 500-ish pages, 550 pages. Probably could have cut that down to a solid 450, 400, but overall, I had a really good time with this. I'm looking forward to the second book. I like how it ended. I'm intrigued. I do want to know more about this Dawnless Night, who's responsible, how they're gonna stop it. It was a good time, so I do definitely recommend this for fans of hard magic systems and strong plot lines. This one's for you. So next, I think I'm gonna move on to Titan Hoppers. I've heard some pretty good reviews coming out of that one so far. It is the one that I'm the most scared of because it's progression sci-fi fantasy. I've only read one progression story and I didn't particularly love it. Sometimes a sci-fi fantasy blend works for me and sometimes it doesn't. So I'm interested to see how Rob J. Hayes does this. The extra terrifying thing is this is gonna be my first Rob J. Hayes book, and I'm actually gonna be reading 2 this month by him. One is Never Die. That'll be for the Summer of Self Pub readathon, but I'm also gonna be reading this one and I hope I like it. A teensy bit scared of it, but I really hope I like it. It's gotten, like I said, some good reviews so far, so fingers crossed. I don't think I have anything fun planned upcoming, but if we do decide to do something fun, I will take you along with me. And once I've read a little bit of Titan Hoppers, we will check back in. Okay, so I know I said I was gonna start Titan Hoppers next. I lied. I started the Crimson Script instead. It's actually been a little while since I updated you guys last. I've just been really busy. Summerween happened, and now it's the week of Summer of Self Pub, so I do want to read some more indie. This one I don't really know a whole lot about yet. I'm only 23 pages of the way in, and I'll be honest, there's something about the writing style that's just really not gripping me, and it's kind of hard for my brain to fully process quickly, if that makes sense. Like, I know what's going on in the story, but nothing is really, I don't know, making it feel very visual. It's just very like I'm reading words on a page. I don't know how to really explain that, but I'm gonna give it a little bit longer and see what I think, see if I start to kind of settle into the writing style a little bit. And if not, I'll come back and I'll let you guys know why it didn't work for me, but hopefully it will start to pick up, and maybe it's just me being absolutely exhausted. And my AC is currently not working, so it's 92 degrees outside here and my air conditioning is just blowing hot air, so that's great. That could be very much so a part of why I am not able to focus on reading. So once I've got my environment back under control and I'm able to read a little bit more of the book, I will check back in with you guys, but I just wanted to let you know that it is Summer of Self Pub, and I started a different book than I told you I was going to. So check back in a bit. Okay, I've got you guys really precariously propped, but we're gonna see if we can make this work. You remember how I said I was gonna read a little bit more of the Crimson Script? Yeah, I lied. It's been a week since that clip, and I had fallen down the rabbit hole that is the Umbrella Academy. I am on season 2, like episode 5 or 6 now. I have been flying through it. Favorite character is Klaus, but it's a tight race because they're all so good, but Klaus cracks me up. I'm having such a good time with it. It's addicting and fast-paced and weird. I'm enjoying it a lot, but because of that, I have not gotten a lot of reading done. I did officially decide to DNF, or I say DNF, I only got like 30 pages in, so it's really not a true DNF of the Crimson script. It's just gonna be a put it down for now. It's not really jiving with me. I just need to wait and pick it back up again later when I'm really feeling it, because I just wasn't connecting with the writing style at all, and that's not doing the book a service or you guys a service if I'm just not really in the mood and so I'm not connecting. Now, this is not to say that I don't pick it up again 2 months from now and I still don't connect with it. Okay, fine. But right now, I just don't think it's the right time for me to be reading it. And then I also decided to pick up Titan Hoppers by Rob J. Hayes. I am about 20% into this one. Right now, it is following our main character, Iso, and in the first chapter, he and his sister are gearing up for her to go on this hop. So we've got the Titan, which is this huge, massive ship, and then our little bitty ship. The little bitty ship gets resources from the Titan, but the Titan is dying, and his sister is gonna go on this very last mission to try to get all the resources that she can. She ends up dying on the ship, and Iso is just distraught. He wants to be a Titan hopper. He wants to follow in the footsteps of his sister. Fast forward about 5 years where he is 17, and the resources of the Titan have nearly completely diminished, and the ship is slowly dying. He is always wanted to be a Titan hopper, but he just doesn't really have any talent. He doesn't really have any power, so he's a mechanic instead. That's essentially where I'm up to now. A few more things have happened, but I don't want to say too much without giving more away. Writing style, really enjoying. Sci-fi elements, really enjoying. I do kind of get a YA feel to this one, and I'm curious if all Rob J. Hayes books are written with the main character being somewhere between 15 and 17, or if it's just the ones that I've picked up so far. And you can kind of tell he reads a little bit young. There is some like teenage squabbling drama, like one of our other girls calling him useless and picking on him, bullying, things that you would expect to see in junior high school, even though these characters are 17. I'm hoping that that's gonna start to go away because it's really getting on my nerves. But other than that, I'm enjoying it. It does have some unique premises to it, so I'm interested to see where that's gonna go. We just had a big event happen, so I think that it's really gonna start to rev up the story a lot. I will check back in with you guys hopefully around the 50% mark. I really need to finish this book tomorrow because, well, today is June 30th and I've got an August TBR to start. So hopefully I can get a really big chunk read today and tomorrow at the very least, and I'll let you guys know how it's going when I figure it out. On the plus side, AC is fixed, so this should be a much more enjoyable experience this time. Okay, so I have officially made it to halfway of Titan Hoppers by Rob J. Hayes, and I'm not loving it. It's not really the book's fault, to be completely honest. It's just, I was expecting an adult book and I'm getting a YA. And I don't know if this is something, if Rob J. Hayes always writes YA, because for some reason I was thinking he was an adult fantasy author, but the last couple that I've read have kind of leaned in the young adult direction. And Titan Hoppers is very young adult. For the most part, we're only having one perspective. It's Iroh's perspective, and he is 17. And then we'll get a sprinkling of some of the adults here and there, but for the most part, it's just his. And there's a ton of young adult tropes. I don't mind a younger character in my books, but the tropes are very heavy-handed. A lot of the dynamics between the characters in the companies essentially are very young adult. At one point, they were all told to hold hands to move across this cavern so that somebody didn't fall in, and they started bickering, and the one girl turned around and stuck her tongue out at him because she couldn't slap him. Just little stuff like that that reads very young, and it's just not really doing it for me. I'm not liking it a whole lot. So I don't know, we'll see. I'm gonna continue it because I don't want to leave you guys with just one book in this vlog, but right now it's not gonna surpass a 3-star just because I'm finding it extremely juvenile. The concepts are interesting, and like I said, the writing style is pretty good, but so we'll see. I'm definitely gonna continue. I'll finish it out, and once I finish it, I'll let you know if any of that changes, if the characters start to grow up a little bit, or if that's just something that didn't work for me. Some people that's gonna work great for. If you do tend to like a slightly younger character and a lot of those very familiar young adult tropes, then this book may be exactly what you're looking for, because the concepts are very cool, but it's just not something that I gravitate toward or enjoy anymore, and it took me by surprise, which is not necessarily a good thing. So anyway, I'll check back in later. That's enough rambling, and Yeah, I gotta go. Okay, everybody, ignore the sweaty. I've been trying to do a little bit better about my walking because, well, I'm out of shape. Anyway, that's beside the point. I just wanted to let you guys know that I have finished Titan Hoppers by Rob J. Hayes, and I ended up actually liking it a little bit better than I thought I would. So let's start with the good. I think that this was a really unique story. It was very different in its sci-fi with a little bit of fantasy elements. It does have a progression tone to it, so we are working with our characters as they try to open different gates, and the gates lead to more power, but that's not the primary focus of the story like it would be in, say, for example, Cradle by Will White. So I enjoyed that aspect. I thought it was different, something that I don't personally read a lot of. The writing style was really good. I had read a previous book of, or started Never Die by Rob J. Hayes, and it was just action, 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 action. So when I started Titan Hoppers, I was afraid it was going to be a similar scenario. It was not. We did focus a lot more on characters, character relationship, and plot, but did have some good action involved in it as well. I really liked the pieces where they were on the Titans, which I think are planet-like things. It's never really explained what Titans are, but the times on them and the focus on like the monster battles and things like that were really creative and interesting, and I enjoyed that a lot. I really wanted to know a lot more about the politics. So we've got this fleet essentially, and you've got high ships and lower ships. The people on the lower ships are basically kind of being allowed to run out of resources. They're letting them just slowly die because they don't feel like they're as important. And then you have like the middle ships and the high ships that are getting more resources, and the council is on the high ships. I really did want to know a lot more about the council and how the politics and the structure of this fleet worked, but we didn't get a whole lot of that in this first book, and that's going to kind of lean into some of my negatives for this book. I just felt like we spent a little too much time on Iroh and the, I guess, inner workings between him and his classmates, essentially. It was a lot of just day-to-day kind of class training type thing, which I enjoy, don't get me wrong, but I do feel like it was a bit too much on that. I could have done a little bit less with that and a little bit more of the politics and the structure of this fleet. I also, again, felt like Iroh was a very young character, and I really wish that this book had been written more from the perspective of an older character, or at the very least just kind of aged Iroh up just a little bit. There were a lot of young adult tropes in this, like who likes whom, and they called one of the people like Tubby a lot. There was a lot of picking on people just like that you would expect in high school. So that kind of thing, I just didn't love the high school type antics. And I do feel like this book was a touch too long. Again, a lot of that was the meandering in the beginning where it was just a bunch of training. I felt like there were a lot of scenes that were repeated over and over and over again, which I didn't really love. But overall, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would based on the first half, and some of the new things that were introduced make me want to read book 2, and if you had asked me at the beginning half if I would have read book 2, I would have told you no. But it did get a little bit more interesting to me as the story went on, so I am curious to see how it continues, especially with the development of a certain robot-like thing, for lack of a better way to put it. I do think that we're going to get a lot more about the politics and the way that this thing is structured in the second book, so I'm looking forward to that. Overall, if you are a fan of like Skyward and that tone of young adult, and you like sci-fi, I think that this one could really work for you. If you like something that's got like a leveling up system and people are gaining abilities based off of how much they work, and I don't really want to tell you any more than that because this one does have a little bit of a separate point to that, but it is part of the story. So if you like that progression type story, then you might really, really like this one. Overall, I think it was a pretty decent success. So I think I've been talking about this long enough. I'm going to wrap up the vlog here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hate that I wasn't able to finish The Last Keeper or The Crimson Script. Both of them, The Last Keeper just didn't work for me in writing style at all, even though I really did try. And The Crimson Script, I will try again later. I think it was just wrong book, wrong time kind of thing. I do highly recommend Winds of Strife especially for those that are a fan of a limiting hard magic system. And I would recommend Titan Hoppers to a certain audience, but just kind of hearing everything that I've mentioned, what worked for me, what didn't, that's going to be up to you. I do think that I will definitely be reading sequels of Winds of Strife and Titan Hoppers, and I will read more from those authors in the future. So I think that this vlog was a success. Let me know down in the comments if you think you might pick either any of these books up, or if you already have, what your thoughts were of them. And don't forget that the link to my Patreon is down below, as well as how to connect with me on Goodreads, Instagram, and Twitter. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you wanna, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!